Hello, this week we're going to talk about the nervous system and some behavioral health terminology. So, the nervous system is a complex communication system allowing for the coordination of body functions and activities. Divided into two parts: the somatic nervous system, which sends signals to the skeletal muscles, voluntary actions, and also receives signals like sensation, pain, stuff like that. And then you have the autonomic nervous system, which is subconsciously operating all the time, and signals are being sent to and from your central nervous system to like organs in the body, endocrine organs, digestive organs, cardiac, respiratory, all this stuff that you don't have to think about, but your body still needs to coordinate. That's part of the autonomic nervous system. And then you can break it down between central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. So this picture on the screen here is the central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord, which are sending and receiving signals to the peripheral nervous system, which are nerves that branch off from the brain and spinal cord to basically every part of the body. And this image here kind of shows a better view of the peripheral nervous system. You can see on the left there, central nervous system consisting of the brain and spinal cord, but the peripheral nervous system is innervated throughout the whole entire body. Like virtually every part of the body is affected or touched by the peripheral nervous system, which connects and communicates to the central nervous system. Here you have a picture of the brain and the brain stem. The brain is contained within the cranium or the skull. It's a center for coordinating all body activities, comprised of the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Typically, how it's divided. So, the cerebrum is the largest portion of the brain. Um, it's divided into a right and left hemisphere. It's responsible for skeletal muscle movement, interpreting senses, so pain, touch, stuff like that. Contains centers for sight and hearing, responsible for intellect, memory, emotional reaction. So basically, most of the stuff you think about with the brain is going to be contained in the cerebrum. The cerebellum is like this little small brain behind or underneath the cerebrum, located under the posterior portion of the cerebrum, assists in the coordination of skeletal muscles to maintain balance. It's also called the hindbrain. And then you have your brain stem, which is that smallest portion at the bottom, a stem like portion of the brain that connects with the spinal cord, contains centers that control respiration and heart rate. Three structures comprise the brain stem: the pons, the medulla oblongata, and the midbrain. So the pons literally means bridge. It connects the cerebrum with the cerebellum and the brainstem. The medulla oblongata is located between the pons and the spinal cord. It contains centers that control respirations, heart rate, and muscle in the blood vessel walls, which assist in determining blood pressure. So these muscles will constrict or dilate to regulate blood pressure. And then the midbrain is the most superior portion of the brainstem. So this is a close-up view of the spinal cord and meninges. The spinal cord traveling from the brainstem all the way down the spinal column, down the back, sending and receiving signals from the peripheral nervous system into this is the central nervous system. The stuff in the middle here, gray matter, is the same stuff that makes up brain tissue, responsible for collecting and sending and interpreting information, full of neurons, so nerve cells. Then you have your meninges, which are the three layers of the membrane that cover the brain and the spinal cord, so protective layers around the brain and spinal cord. You have your nerve roots, your spinal ganglion, arachnoid, dura mater. Dura mater is the tough outer layer of the meninge. Arachnoid is the delicate middle layer of the meninges. The arachnoid membrane is loosely attached to the pia mater by web-like fibers, which allow for the subarachnoid space, which is fluid-filled space filled with cerebral spinal fluid between the arachnoid and the pia mater. The pia mater is a thin layer of the most inner part of the meninges. And this is consistent all the way up the spinal cord and around the brain. The cranial nerves seen in this image here. Cranial nerves are 12 pairs of nerves that come straight from the brain or brainstem and affect certain parts of the body. They're different than the rest of the peripheral nerves, which come out of the spinal cord. So these are the olfactory, the optic, oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal, abducens, facial, vestibulocochlear, glossopharyngeal, vagus, accessory, and hypoglossal. They all serve different functions. Many of these functions have to do with like sensation and communication, like vision, hearing, speaking, chewing, swallowing. And then the vagus nerve, very important, plays a role in regulating respirations, heart rate, digestion. And some combining forms for this chapter. Cerebro or encephalo is referring to the brain or the cerebrum. Myelo is spinal cord. This can be confusing because in previous chapters, myelo meant bone marrow, right? So don't get it confused. Neuro is nerve. Polio means gray matter, which is like a nerve, neuron tissue within the brain and spinal cord. Radiculo or rhizo is nerve root. Angio, blood vessels. Blasto, developing cell. Embolo is a plug. Esthesio is sensation or feeling. Phaso is referring to speech. Mento or psycho is referring to mind. Quadri is referring to four. We got a different combining vowel there, right? Quadri. All right, let's hit you with some prefixes. A and an, those are repeaters. We should know what that is. Absence of or without. Dis means painful, abnormal, or difficult. Hemi is referring to half. Hyper is above or excessive. Inter is between. Intra is within. Poly is many. Sub is under. Post is after.